Okay, Sean,
That's enough about the present. Let's talk
what are
about
we
the
doing
past.
today? What are we
And
doing
here's
today,
the
Sean?
thing. We're going to mix things up today because the way this
Buckle
show
up,
was pitched
Giannis.
originally was we were going to deep dive into like lore, continents, gods, a bunch of stuff that I didn't really know about. But recently, we've been doing stuff that I was present for. And so, whereas originally it was like, Giannis asks a question, Sean answers and probably gets it wrong because he doesn't know, and then Emma corrects it. Now it's been like, well, I'm not going to get that wrong. I was there. And so, like, Em is just going to, do story time, which is all well and good. We decided to put a little
I do a
spin on
good
this
story
ball.
time. Yes.
We do a good
Sure
story
do.
time. And instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Giannis what he thinks is going to happen in the story because he's been with Blackwater a long time. He's been with us he knows what's happened to the lore up until this point. And so what we'd like to do is, remind him of the circumstances, what brought us to the point where we are right now, what Blackwater wants to do, and what he thinks, given what he knows about us, what we did to achieve that goal. So to that end, Em, could you give us just a brief reminder, where did we leave off last time?
Absolutely. So we ended the 6 months arc with us preparing to head to Icemeet we decided to go find the seal in the Forgotten Expanse, which is this old part that used to be part of the continent of Lafar. It is now just this series of shrouded islands. Nobody goes there. So we decided to head to Icemeet to find our way to the place in the Forgotten Expanse where we knew that there was, or we thought that there was a seal.
Okay.
So yeah.
So Giannis, that's the situation. We're trying to find a seal. We've got to cross a great distance of presumably water to get there. What do you think we did? What do you think Blackwater did? Dig into it.
I love this, Sean. This is the best.
My gut instinct says that you would have found someone who's been to Icemeet and then kidnapped them to the elemental plane and then have them bamf you to Icemeet. How am I doing?
I mean, one of us has been to Icemeet. I'm curious who you think which of us has been to Icemeet.
Who's been to Icemeet?
I genuinely don't know. I feel like that's a Yana thing.
You would be correct. That was Yana.
Oh!
So when Yana was on the run from Barmwich, she assumed many different identities and found her way to Icemeet and took the name Pup. And she was essentially a barback or a bartender in a like a little podunk bar in this like shipping town of Icemeet that is like the coldest. It's like the last place that you can be before you head out. Like usually people sail up and around to head up to like Garyang or up and about. So that's how, we got up with, did we have plaintiff? Well, we got up with, and then we got down. We went to the air elemental plane and then we went down again. And Yana took us to
points on the board.
Giannis, I got a question for you. So I'm going to skip right ahead. And we decided to charter a ship to take us to this island or wherever we need to go to. One of the party members took umbrage with the first mate of this ship. Who do you think that was and why?
Well, there's only two options.
Mm-hmm.
It was either Letters or Finnan.
And why do you think that would? Commit to one. Yeah. Just figure something out. If you're right or wrong, it's still hilarious.
I'm gonna say
just follow your gut. What does that say?
I'm gonna say it was Finnan.
And why? What did this first mate do to piss Finnan off?
Was he more Jack than Finnan?
Ooh, very interesting. Very interesting.
So a little bit of context around that. So we get to Icemeet, and we go to this place called the Ice Drift Inn with the proprietor, who is Lundek Hammerclam. We proceed to go in and get
That's the worst name.
Yeah, we proceed to go in and we get decently drunk. Finnan and Callie start drinking hammer clams, which are like their version of a Caesar, I think.
Oh my God, that has to go in the drink book. I forgot we made hammer clams.
Hammer clams. And so we see three captains that are in the bar. We meet Captain Dez, we meet Captain Crowley, and then we meet Captain Shade. So we end up talking to the three captains, and we end up picking Captain Shade. as this captain to go with. Cordelia is wonderful. Wonderful. She's straight up business oriented. She wants contacts, and her thing for passage is like money, like 750 gold pieces for passage, and she wants trade contacts with Wolverine. She wants trade contracts. So Callie calls Kamea and is like, can we make this happen? We need passage. And Kamea's like, yes, okay. If it gets you there safely, all right. So we go down to their ship called the Nightshade, and we meet the first mate. Sean, tell me what you remember about Ecterius?
Well, so Ecterius was, I believe, a gnome.
Yes.
A gnome who was like, my name is Ecterius. Like,
yes.
He was like all business all the time. And all he wanted to do was like, I'm here to slay sea monsters. Like,
yes.
He was a very serious individual. And this is the thing. I wasn't actually here for this first section.
Right.
I was on
numbers.
set, but I heard a lot about Ecterius. And he and Yana actually hit it off quite a bit.
I did.
I can't remember the finer
Clack
points
had
of
an
it.
issue with him.
Oh yes, Clack fucking hated Terry.
So, Emma, remind me, how did Terry and Yana actually end up bonding? Like, what was it that they hit it off so well on?
I think they bonded over the fact that they were gnomes, and this was one of the first gnomes that Yana had seen outside of Wolfrine or Barmwitch, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is very cool, please tell me everything about you. And Yana, she's always wanting to make new friends, and Terry loved Wiggles and was like, this is awesome. And Terry was also played by, we had a guest for that session, his name was Sawyer, and we loved him very much. And so Sawyer came and joined us for this one session and played Ecterius, the monster slayer ranger whose goal was to vanquish the biggest, baddest sea thing that he could. And so we knew that this boat journey was going to take us 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the weather. So we were going to be on this boat a fucking long ass time. So go ahead,
Clack
John.
basically spent the entire 2 to 3 weeks just being real salty. I don't like that Terry guy. Like, he's bad vibes. Like,
and he came up and talked to Letters a bunch and was like, do I have to fight him? Like, what do I do? Like,
which I think the answer was a resounding yes.
Of course.
Like, you do need to fight Terry.
At that point, I feel like Letters was, most of his things were resolved through challenging someone to combat.
You're not wrong, actually. That was definitely like still pretty much gladiator mode Letters.
Yeah.
It's like, somebody just fight
punch
them,
him. Yeah.
They'll sell it one way or the other.
So the first couple weeks of the journey go by actually pretty quietly. We start moving down the coast, and this is actually where we have our first encounter with some form of frost giant. They start chucking boulders at the boat. One of them hits the boat. Kokanee manages to
mends it.
Of course he does. Dual cast mending, and then we head out into the open ocean. And I literally have here written down in my notes, Clack is a bit underlined jealous of Terry. And we start, and so then we start making our way towards, we knew we were going to be the last kind of piece of landmass before we get really out towards the Forgotten Expanse was Sister's Watch, which we thought was this, do you remember what we thought it was? Yanis?
Sister's Watch.
What is Sister's Watch? What is
that? Was that one of the outposts of Relauven?
Yes.
Well, remember
Caradoc. Yes, you're correct.
Only because that came up recently with
yeah, totally. So we find this
this is what we were talking about. Chatwater, we're fucking getting there.
This is
where we came to Sister's Watch. It's all fucking clicking together.
Look at us getting there. We told you from the beginning when you started watching Chatwater that we would get there. This is us getting there. We're getting there.
Just
be
hope
proud of us, please.
We don't get all the way there, because then I don't know what we're going to talk about.
We'll find things. We'll find it. We have 4 more arcs to go through after this one. We're going to be fine. So we find our way to this broken 3-story tower, and we manage to get our way inside, and we see the remnants of a workshop of some description, like a Caraxian workshop. And half of the towers submerged underwater. So
you guys swam down.
Yes. So there was a couple people who swam down. Sean, do you remember what happened at this part?
I actually wasn't there that
day. Were you not? Were you still filming? This is still numbers. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't there until So you're gonna have to take the lead on this.
Callie and Finn.
I'll take a shot though.
Yeah,
because I
please,
don't
take a shot.
actually know.
Shoot your shot.
So we have to do swimming.
Mhm.
Letters definitely did not go there. He was not cool with water.
He was
yet.
also not properly present.
Yeah, he was checking out nose piercings. Clack definitely not going down there.
No.
Now you've already said Callie, which seems bizarre to me because her whole thing is heavy armor.
She wasn't in as heavy armor at that point.
Oh, okay.
Because her new armor is heavy armor. She was just in medium armor at that point.
Okay, so we got Finnan, Callie. Neppy can't let anyone go 30 feet away from her, so Neppy goes down there. No? You let people swim 30 feet below you?
Kokanee went, so.
But what if there was a crit from like a sea urchin?
Oh, there was. There was a crit down there.
There was almost a full knockout down there, wasn't it?
Yeah, somebody almost died underwater. So we find this like some broken swords with symbols of Arathis. We find an old rusted warforged that has been not like destroyed, not turned back arm, and its arm was like melted from heat. So we were like, what is going on here? So Finnan and Callie and Spooky actually swim down, and Kokanee kind of stays up top to be like, let me know what you find, and Kokanee doesn't really like water either, so he was like, I will stay up here, I will come down if you need me. So they go down underneath. They're using the Caraxian breathing masks, and Finnan goes towards a door at the end of a hallway that is underwater and opens it, and Callie and Spooky are like, no, and he gets hit by, there's 3 oaken bolters, so these like big ballistas. So Finnan gets fucking wrecked by those and almost drops unconscious underwater. And we just hear the rumbling and the shaking above, and Kokanee and Neppy are like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Because it was just like, it was the Lightkeepers. Well, I guess they weren't the Lightkeepers at that point. It was Kokanee and Neppy, Clack, and Numbers up top, because we were all just like sitting waiting for them to come back up. So they don't really find, actually, is that where they found one of the circlets? I think that's where they found, so Kokanee found one of the other steel circlets, or the steel circlet for the Clockwork Dragon there, but we didn't know it was for Clockwork Dragon at the time. And so then he lays the Warforged to rest. Like we go, and the bones that Finnan retrieved from the people who were there. And then we head out back to the boat. And then, of course, we have to fight a sea creature because Terry is with us. And these like deep, I think they were deep scions. They were like these like fish people kind of came out of the water and started attacking us. We managed to vanquish them. And then it was the only session that Sawyer was able to join us for. So Terry was not quite satisfied with that as the biggest monster he's ever killed. So he was going to keep looking and keep going.
What, did he just get in a rowboat and like sail? No,
he stayed on the boat, but it was like, that will not be enough for me. And we were like, okay, Terry, all right. So that brings us to the end of session 67. Session 67 was called The Last Watch. And now we're at session 68, which is called When Death Stares Back.
I want to derail this for a second.
Please derail, yes.
One of my favorite things ever was how you guys found the 3rd circlet. And we'll get to the proper story of that at some point. But one of my favorite parts about it was you guys were inspecting something, or you guys were checking out like a little hovel or something. Mm-hmm. And you guys were like almost done. And then I can't remember who it was. I think it was Matt. Was like, oh, the circlets have always been in places like this. I'll look for a circlet. And Tim was like, yeah, you find it. And it was, and I have since then always been like, was that circlet always there? Or was it there because Matt asked? Like, it was a moment of like.
Just that was in the Forbidden Tomb is where he found it, the last circlet.
But there was like a real moment of like, you guys were like, yep, we're done in the tomb. We're going to leave. And then Matt's like, oh, I'll look for the circlet. Tim's like, yep, you find the circlet. And I was like, was it there, or did you just give it to them? Were you just like, it's time for them to have all the circlets?
Narratively, it made sense why it was there, but also we needed the 3rd one. So
I'm going to have to save that for next time I talk to Tim.
Yes, probably. When you can, we'll talk about when you're going to be able to talk to Tim shortly. So we start and we have we're sailing through the open ocean at this point, and we know that there is this fog bank that surrounds the the Forgotten Expanse that like nobody has gotten through. Like ships broach around it because shit gets bad, in the fog cloud. People know that. So after leaving Sisters Watch, Captain Shade lets us know it's going to be 3 to 4 days until we get to the fog bank. So we have some time to kill. Neppy does a bunch of scrying. I scry on Cora, nothing. Scry on Volketh, doesn't work.
That's my boy.
Yeah, right. But I did manage to succeed on my scry on Alamir, Kokanee dad. So he was in Tor-En, so the city that Blackwater actually started in. He was in an old abandoned temple and found the seal that was in Tor-En. I watched him find the seal in Tor-En. And I saw that he had killed our friend Hedgehog. Any memories of what race Hedgehog was? Either of you?
I know this one.
Hedgehog was Yana's friend.
Yes.
And he was a barbarian. He was big. I remember he was big. Goliath?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Hedgehog was the prime guardian of the seal, and Alamir killed him. And I was Yana was devastated. So Neppy's like cast sending to King Evard and was like, you have to keep your town safe because shit is bad. Like, please keep town safe. So everyone was alerting everyone about shit getting really, really awful. Letters and Kokanee gazed into the circlets together for the first
Figuring
time.
out how the giant fucking dragon worked.
Did you guys know at this point it was a giant? Or
we kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
It could breathe fire. We figured that out, that if you try to talk with it, it's going to breathe fire. Yes. Here's where things get really interesting. We do come to the fog, and I might be skipping over something.
No,
Stop me.
So it's about, so we've been on this journey for about 2.25 weeks. So we are at the fog bank, getting into the fog bank at this point.
We come to a fog bank, and I'll tell you, Yanis, things get spooky. Not Yana spooky, but things get real spooky. And real, like, naval, as in boaty.
Boats.
What is the spooky boat thing that happened to us in the fog? Tell us in vivid detail.
Yeah. The spooky boat thing. Did you guys did you run into a ghost ship?
Oh, fucking ding, ding, ding. He nailed it. Yo.
Almost, like pretty close.
No,
that's like
you have to give him the point. It's 100% a ghost ship.
That's a point. Yeah, it is a point.
Tell you what happened.
Dish it,
so
Sean,
we're
dish it.
Sailing into
Davy Jones, with like Pirates of the Caribbean when they sail into
very
the
close,
fog and the
even
so like
spookier.
There had been some like spooky mumbo jumbo happening ahead of time. There was like these like green portions of the fog that were like definitely sorry.
Yeah, get it.
Oh my gosh, I just sneezed. Oh, thank
Blessings
you so
from
much.
my goddess.
Blessings from my goddess. So there had been some spooky stuff that had been happening in the fog. There had been like magic. There had been like, it looked like what was like a cloud kill spell that was just interspersed all over the place in the fog. And this was happening like daily. So Spooky was kind of sending out like magical detect magic sonar all over the place to like see if she could see things. Like she was essentially just ritual casting detect magic every like 10 minutes just to be like, do I see anything?
This is before Finnan had his magic eyes.
Yes, this is before then. So there was some, we get to like, we keep going and then we see that there is a ship behind us. And we hadn't noticed it before. Sean, would you like to take over at this point?
And so, Finnan, he's got that past perception. He sees the ship. And, he's looking out the back. But I think Letters or Kokanee is looking out the front. Something like that. And while he's looking out the back, he looks real close. And there's someone at the front of the ship. He's like, oh, no, that's not just someone at the front of the ship. That's Kokanee at the front of that ship. And so we do a little test where it's like, oh, fuck, this is a mirror image of our ship. If you go here, they go there. And like Kokanee, like, let me try this. And he takes a shot because the ship is also in front of us, isn't it? It's like.
It's behind us.
It's behind us. Yeah. So like Kokanee takes a shot. They switch places. Kokanee takes a shot at Finnan and Finnan gets hit with the bullet. Yes. Like he shoots Ghost Finnan and actual
real
Finnan gets hit. So we're like, oh no. And upon closer inspection, while it is us, it's not just us.
Yeah.
It is ghosty, like dead version. So like Finnan is not just Finnan, it's Finnan with his head cracked open, like when he got eaten by that fucking mind flayer. Kokanee has his heart torn out. Yana is like fucking
desiccated,
mummified. Yeah. She's like
Letters look like he had died of like exceedingly old age.
Hell yeah, Letters made it to the end.
And Neppy looked like she had drowned, which is something because like Neppy's died once in her life when she was called to be high priestess and she drowned.
Part of the ritual.
The ritual. Yeah.
And so like it was like everyone was very much confronted with their own mortality, and we just like we can't fight these things because it just hurts us. So we just had to like be okay with these spooky ghosties riding beside us.
Like Kokanee saw himself like covered in like these familiar scars that were just like open, and like his heart was gone out of his chest. Yeah, I've got it here. Finnan sees his head open. So does Callie. Kokanee sees the scars. Neppy sees her drowned self. Spooky seems gray and pallid and desiccated, and then Letters looks old and decayed. And there's also sirens that are chasing us as well. So our ears are like stuffed full of like wax and cotton. And so there's a moment too. So we see this ghost ship following behind us, and Neppy had been like flirting with like communing with the Raven Queen at this point, because we knew that what was used to be in that area was the city of Manta, which was her patron city. And we knew that it had something to do with the Dawn War, but we didn't quite know what. So Neppy was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can commune with the Raven Queen.
Did you know she was the matron of vengeance yet, or was this
She was not the matron of vengeance. This is pre MOV. This is when she was still the Raven Queen.
Chatwater will get there.
But I thought she died. There. I thought she died.
She did.
During the Dawn
Little
War.
spoiler, Giannis. That's what this whole arc's about.
Is that she's not dead?
At this point, she is
there.
The fucking
Raven Queen.
The Raven Queen.
I understand. I'm just what I'm trying to understand is why would Neppy think to contact her if Neppy thought she was dead?
Well,
because we go on faith.
Yeah.
But you thought you could get across the barrier of death and contact her in the sort of like afterworld.
Especially as the high priestess of Nepthisiket, it was just kind of like, if anyone's going to be able to reach out to her, it's me. I wanted to let her know. So Neppy was essentially standing. So Finnan had cast daylight on a coin. And so Neppy was just standing at the back of the boat with Kokanee. And she's like, just will you be here while I do this? And so she casts commune with the Raven Queen, and she gets this vision of this pool of water. And she's like, it's almost like she's standing, like in Stranger Things where like 11 is kind of just in that like black area with like a little bit of water. That's what she gets the vision like. And she asks if the images that we're seeing, because we'd seen a bunch of like these spooky images, and I was like, oh, do they intend to dissuade us? And the Raven Queen was like, yes. And she, she's like, will they hurt us? And the Raven Queen didn't answer that question. And then Neppy asked her, like, are you at peace? And then she said, never. And that was it. So we were like, oh shit, stuff is bad. So we had gotten through the fog at this point, and then we're like, there's a reef that is outside of the Forgotten Expanse. And we like take a bunch of damage going over the rocks and stuff like that, because we had to like pilot. Tim had us like go through some mechanics of like navigation mechanics of piloting the ship.
Shocker, we weren't good at piloting a ship.
Shocker, we were not good at
it. I think it ended up just like being Finnan on the front, just blowing apart.
Letters was there too, yeah. Like you guys were just firing stuff off to like
just blowing up this coral reef that had our ship run aground on.
And then we decided to rest just outside the like inner. So like the reef was there, and then we just decided to rest and then head through it in the morning. So that's the end of session 68. And now we're at session 69. Nice. And we were all very excited for this session. That turned out to be a definitely different sort of session than we had anticipated. So this one is called A Path Alight, She Beckons Below. So we make our way through the reef, and the fog just like abruptly ends. There's just like a line where the fog ends. So we get through, and we're about 200 to 300 feet offshore. And it's like this soft, this like gray landscape with really soft hills with like some ruins pretty far off. There's some vegetation and there's some debris on the shoreline. And there's like a really, really high black wall that looks like it's made of obsidian in the background. So we, Neppy uses the Caraxian brandy that we had to cast Hero's Feast. Because it's essentially a Hero's Feast potion. And basically with the ones that she had, she could cast Hero's Feast on 17 people. So we did it. We got all of us and the crew, which was really nice as well.
We like to share.
Because we like to share. We like to make sure people are taken care of.
I think there was 2 people of the crew who couldn't do it.
Yeah. We asked Captain Shade to pick who those were, so it wasn't on us.
Ooh, ouch.
And it's not a big moment, but you can just imagine Tim is so good at being people who are disappointed and like having to be okay with it. It was like, yeah, it's fine. Like it was just that you had to be there, but it was shocker. Tim was funny. That's all I want to say.
Funny. So we get off onto this dinghy, and after about 150 feet, Yanis, what do you think happens? We're sailing into shore. What do you think happens?
Shore, and this is 150 feet before you get to the land.
Yeah, so we're still in a small dinghy.
I mean, there's got to be something on the land that makes you not want to land. What would it be?
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
There's got to be some sort of monster or some sort of big bad that makes
What type of monster? What type of monster? I'm going to give you a monster. What type of monster? Describe it to me. What does your gut tell you?
So we're in the ocean at this point still.
What tickles your gut? It's a sea monster. What is it?
What does it look like?
It's got to have tentacles.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does have tentacles. What else it got?
We know Tim loves that Lovecraft.
We love that Lovecraft. What else it got? It got tentacles.
It's got to have a beak. It's a squid.
It had a maw, yes, a sharp, black, scaly maw. So yeah, a big tentacled creature kind of just like comes up out of the water and threatens to engulf the boat. And we start fighting it, and we realize it's also not real. It's another one of the illusions. So we like discuss death and talk about like the whole thing that we like process the things we saw on the ship, and we're like, like Neppy's like very calm, like, yes, that's not natural. Death is a process that happens to all beings. Yes, this is fine. And so we get onto the beach, and it's like this like black sand that like does not, or this gray sand that just doesn't look like it's been disturbed. And the crazy thing about it is there's no wind, there's no sound. It is unfathomably quiet. It's ridiculous. So we see something actually pretty cool on the shoreline. Sean, you remember what that was?
I do. I'm just going to tell you, I want to do this one.
Please do it.
So we come across this little hut that looks like it's kind of been here forever. And importantly, this whole island, everything is gray. It's all like monochrome, not necessarily ashy, but it's just like the color has been drained from the island. And it is quiet. It is
too quiet.
Everything is muffled. Like nothing has the acoustics you want. Like we can hear each other, but like, it's not an active acoustic sound space. And so we find this little hut that looks like, it's built like driftwood. It's basically like a survivor hut. Like someone, I guess, landed here and it's like, this is where they lived. And we look inside and we just see like 2 like mummies, basically, like 2 dudes like sitting across a table who are just gray,
petrified.
Ashen and just non-existent. And we like, letters, of course, got to do wizard watch, starts poking around, and then they're not alive, spooky ghosty things, and we're like, bad spooky ghosties, and they basically just melt in like one hit because they're dusty boys. And it was just like, it wasn't a threatening encounter, it was just deeply
terrifying,
unsettling.
so unsettling.
It was just Tim making us, the players, roll will saves to resist being frightened.
And
then was this a Halloween episode?
No, this was February of this year.
This was just our life. And then as we went inland, Yanis, we found something very peculiar. While it seemed like there was no life on this island, there was in fact one particular plant
Mhm.
that was growing on the island that is very near and dear to one of our clerics. What do you think that plant was?
I love this game. This is my new favorite game.
I'm really enjoying this new format.
This is great.
My gut instinct says lilies, but I'm trying to think of why that would make sense. But our clerics are, so it's something to do with Neppy.
Yes,
And
is
it
something
has
to do
a
with
flower. Is it catnip? No, it's not catnip.
You guess them.
Um,
It's not a plant. It's not a small plant. Let's put it that way.
not a small plant. Sunflowers?
No.
No.
So it's the type of we're walking along and Neppy, like Tim's like, Neppy, with your passive perception, you notice that the trees that are around you, you recognize them. They're the Alamwat trees. They're the same type of trees that grow at Temple Fiolenus, the trees that grow Rila. And so like we go over to the trees and there is Rila. There is like, so generally like Rila, this fruit that grows at Fiolenus is like almost like the size of like giant papayas. But here they're almost like, they're really small, like the size of like plums. And Neppy is just like overcome. She's like, oh my God. Like she's just like, she's like,
the significance being that these don't grow anywhere outside of like Nephthysicet's temples.
Yeah.
And they are the only thing growing on this island.
Yeah. It's wild. So we walk towards...
They're the ones that get you drunk, right?
The Rila, yeah. So the Rila, the fruit itself doesn't get you drunk. It's you put it in the white water and let it ferment, and then that gives you the hallucinogenic properties that the priestesses use. Yes.
Death wine.
Yeah. So we're walking through
basically
across these plains, this grassland, and we get towards the edge of the city. And the crazy thing about the grass is that it's gray, and we're like, the grass doesn't move, so when we crunch it down, it stays there. But the weird thing about the grass is it's bent outward. So like from the city, the grass is bent that way.
Like there was a
in all directions.
In all directions.
Exactly.
Like a 45-degree angle outwards, which is fucking terrifying. And it's so quiet. It's like way too quiet. Tim did a really amazing job of setting the scene. We were all on edge for this session. So we get to the edge of the city and there's these high black walls, but instead of being blown outward, the walls are blown inward. So we were kind of thinking about at that point, it's almost like there was like a collapse and then an explosion, which is what we reckoned. So we get through and we hear this rumbling. We've been hearing this rumbling for like 3 hours of walking, the party. And then we come across something utterly terrifying. I don't know if we want to make Yanis guess what it is because I just need to hear Sean talk about it.
Well, here's the thing. So we come across, it's called like a night stalker. It's a night haunt. It's so bad. It's like 4 stories tall. It's just black shadow. It's awful. It's kind of reminiscent of like the end of Princess Mononoke, like the fucking, I think that's called the Night Walker, like where it just like kills everything. This thing is so bad, and I'll tell you a little peek behind the curtain. Challenge rating way too high for our party.
Yeah.
Yanis, we are all still alive, and we did come in contact with the Night Haunt. What do you think we did?
Did you fight it? No, but I mean, like, I'm asking that as a question.
Okay. We did decide to engage with it.
Because I feel like what you're asking me is like, what did we do when we fought it to
Yes, that is exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah.
How did we survive? And I'll tell you, it wasn't just punching it to death.
No.
Because
no, you
2 rounds with this thing and it would have been a TPK.
You must have polymorphed it. No?
Another creative spell by one of our wizards.
A wizard creative spell. So it was either, if it wasn't a polymorph, then it must have been a banish?
Correct. And so here's where things get really juicy.
Whoa. Juicy.
So a Night Haunt is created in lore when a being gets sent to what it's like the negative energy plane, which is like the very bottom of all the planes. And so when a being gets sent there, the Night Haunt basically becomes a shadow of them.
Yes.
And by some quirk, like the only way to get this being out of the negative energy plane is to take bring
something in it.
Yeah, to replace it. And so when you banish something, if you maintain concentration, if they're not from this plane, if by the end of that concentration, if they're not from this plane, they just stay where you sent them. So there was an entity that was sent to the negative energy plane, and we didn't know this at the time. We didn't know this about Nighthawk.
We had no idea, no.
But when Spooky, naturally Yana, cast banishment on it, we waited the 60 seconds, and then it just stayed gone.
What did you guys bring back?
We didn't know.
No. Do you know
so we're
now?
Like, there was something.
That was the crazy thing. Like, we didn't know at the
Chatwater
time that Chatwater will get there. We didn't know at the time that something was brought back. This is like a little peek behind the curtain. We just thought, oh my gosh, we banished it. Delightful. And like a couple people in the party knew. And I've talked to Tim about this, and like, I'm remembering his facial expressions as he had to I watched the cogs turn in his head as he was trying to figure out like, oh, they sent it back. And Tim, I remember talking to Tim about this, and he was like, oh no. Oh yes. And so like him having to work out the mental gymnastics of what we did. He's like, I just thought you guys were going to avoid it, but then you didn't.
That's not what Blackwater does ever.
No, we don't avoid things. We take things head on and then we banish them. So he was like recalibrating with what we had done. And then we were just like, okay, it's gone. And we didn't know what we had done at the time. We just thought, great, it's gone.
So if you banish it, does the thing that you replace it with come back to where you banished or does it come to where it was banished from?
We didn't know at the time, but it didn't come back. It didn't come back right there. Nothing.
When we banished it, it was just gone. That's a victory. But importantly, and remember this for later, because it's probably going to come up next Chatwater, something went back to the bad place, and something came out of the bad place.
Yeah. So,
but we are having a good time.
We're having a great time.
The night haunt. Good for us. That thing's so big. No fucking legendary saves for you.
Yeah, because like if you drop to 0 hit points from a night, like a night walker or a night haunt, that's it. Nothing short of a wish spell will bring you back. Like no true resurrection, no nothing. You're done. That's it. Your soul ripped from your body, gone. It's bad. So we
continue on our way.
We head into the city, and this city is like this marks of a siege that happened there. That's like thousands and thousands of years old. We see a bunch of debris, but there are absolutely no bodies, no bones, no nothing. There's some siege-like weaponry inside the walls. And the structures are more, as we move closer to the inside of the city, the structures are more intact. They're quite Gothic in depiction. And we get to the inner wall in the center of the city, and it's mostly intact. It does look like it's been rippled by this shockwave. But Neppy spots the statue of a raven in the center in this circular courtyard. We see this huge willow tree that is petrified and black. And at its base, there is a large obsidian plate. No markings on it, no nothing. So Neppy obviously figures that we are in Manta. We are in the patron city of the Raven Queen. What do you think our dear grave cleric does? She sees an obsidian plate at the base of a tree. What do you think she does?
I mean,
knowing
you
what
pray.
you know.
You always
Of course
pray.
I do. Of course I do. How does she pray?
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 How does she
pray?
What does she do?
This is like
you probably
because it feels like you see a thing. What do you do? Like that's how D&D usually goes. Like so, this was the thing. This was the setting, and what happened? It's D&D, but you have a wrong. There's wrong answers and only one right one.
And I have to try and think like characters that I don't play.
Yeah. It's an impossible situation.
So you would pray, and how would you pray? You would. It depends who you're praying to.
What does Neppy do when she prays to her goddess? Like, what is the thing that she does that is like kind of gross, but she doesn't?
Oh, you cut yourself, don't you?
Yes, she cuts her hands.
And then you drip the blood all over the plate?
Obsidian plate. And when she does that, these two at the far end of the plate, so Neppy's sitting, so there's like the tree and then this plate. So Neppy is at the kind of, opposite where the tree is. So Neppy drips the blood onto this plate, and at the far end close to the tree, 2 gray handprints appear on the plate. So Neppy thinks for a moment, and she's like, okay, I know what to do here. So she goes down like in supplication, essentially like in a child's pose, like, and puts her full hands out, puts her 2 hands on the plate, and kneels down, and like completely lies down in supplication, as she does in prayer all the time. And she hears a voice inside her head, and it's younger, youthful, but she recognizes it. It's Nepthisiket. So she hears her voice in her head, and she's like, Neppy's just like overwhelmed. And she
at
says,
this point, it's usually just Kitty Cat who shows up and gives you
like Neppy
vibes.
talks to Nepthisiket through commune and through prayer and stuff like that. But usually it's just like either her eyes come through or the kind of vision of a cat. But this is Nepthisiket's voice asking Neppy a direct question. Usually it's the opposite way around. So the voice says, who disturbs the undergrove? And Neppy identifies herself as the high priestess of Nepthisiket, and like is like, I'm in tears at this point because Neppy's talking to her goddess. And Neppy hears the voice say again, those who are dead must remain dead. It had a real like, what is it like? It was like the Greyjoys, like, what is dead may never die, or something like that. It had that real kind of vibe to it. So as she's lying down on this platform and answers this question, the platform starts to sink into the ground
with her on it.
And the party is just like walking, and then it just like, she manages to right herself, and it's a staircase that leads down. And so Neppy's just like, okay, yeah, we're going in. Please be reverent, everyone. She's like, please be reverent.
Let me just be very clear.
This is
a lot of the party gives Neppy shit about reverence. This is where it all started from, because she's like, okay, I did the thing by like being mommy's favorite. And then she like sat us all down, is like, listen, we're going into the gods' like grave. Reverence is the thing. We're like, sorry, what is that? It's like, let me fucking tell you, let me spell it out. And like, he's like, we're not fucking around here. I know this is God stuff. This is Neppy's episode. Don't fuck around. I'm looking at you, Finnan. I'm looking at you, Letters. Don't
you, Callie. I'm looking at you, Kogan and Yana. Everybody.
None of
fucking
that chaotic
around.
bullshit, because this is the fucking god of death, and she will murk us. Reverence.
Like, I had this like vision of when like kids have like friends over, and there's like that like dad's room where he keeps all of his like the dad things, like his trophies and stuff, and you're like, we can go in, but you cannot touch anything because he will kill me.
It's like that. It was exactly like that. And so Neppy realized that the only person she hadn't cast, so we've heard Letters talk about how was an outsider, like an ajnabi, which is the word for like outsider for Temple Philenis. But everyone had either been, had either died or had been touched by death in some way, or had received life transference from Neppy, which is kind of like the thing. Like, if you've received life transference from a priestess of Nepthisiket, you are no longer ajnabi. Like, you can be welcome inside. So Neppy realizes she hasn't done that on Clack. So she casts life transfers on Clack and is like, this is why it's important. I want you to be safe here, because you're very important to me. So we go down under the city, essentially. And there's a willow tree above. What do you think we find down below?
Under the tree or under the city?
It's both. It's a giant cavern. It is a giant cavern.
It's probably like crypts, like what's underneath Paris, like the tombs.
Actually, good guess.
Close.
We will get to that. There are tombs, just not yet.
Not yet.
I love this because Yanis is so smart because he gets it, but not quite.
Yeah, and he knows Tim's storytelling too, which I love.
What would be under there? It depends on, like, I get visuals of roots and stuff of the tree.
Oh, he kills it. He fucking scopes it. 360 fucking. So here's the deal. It's dark, misty. We get lost. like Neppy's like, I'm gonna find my god, and like just goes up on her own. She's like, I'm gonna do this. We're all like, please don't. She's like, no, I gotta do it. I'm gonna go.
She's
on
like,
faith.
hold on,
and
I'm gonna
finds
pull a Finnan.
fucking nothing. That's
Find
she gives
nothing.
us this whole speech of like, no, I love you, like please, if I die, and like very like, oh, I'm going to my death, like Neppy does, and she just Mr. Magoo's it around this like dark. Yes, that's what happened.
I'm shaking my head because I'm laughing, but that is exactly what happened. That is very, very truly what happened. Neppy was like, I love you all so much, and if I have to die for us to find our way, that's what's going to happen. You go on, you leave me here, and then she came back 15 minutes later and was like, I fucking found nothing.
Around in the dark, and we're like, I don't fucking know. And so she's like, Mommy, I need a hint.
Yeah.
She calls her god, and she's like, use a light. And so Finnan's like, oh, I know light, and casts a light spell, and like.
Hold on, so you guys went into the dark cavern, and you guys went.
Nobody cast light.
We're not going to look around. Well, it's too dark for us to see. But Neppy's just going to go on faith.
Yeah, of course.
That's
Do you
exactly
expect any different from my girl? And
No.
like nobody, and like Finnan had cast dark vision on Kokanee, so we could all see in the dark. So there was no reason for us to have a light on. So
we didn't want to touch anything because we were trying to be reverent.
We were trying to be reverent. So that like the roots of this tree system are huge. There's just like the roots of the willow tree are much larger than they should be. The cavern stretches about 15 feet from floor to ceiling. It's big, and it just looks like it goes on forever. So we like go, Neppy asked the Pissaket, and like the push first was to go off to the right. We kept walking. We found nothing. Neppy's like, and there was like fog that was continually rising from the floor, and the fog was quite acrid. Like
it was danger fog.
Letter stuck his face in it, and he took damage from it. So Neppy goes around. She tries to find stuff herself. She can't fucking find anything. And then Neppy casts Commune one more time, and Neptisiket says, find the light. So like Neppy can't cast light. So she runs back to the group and says, somebody cast light. And like, so Finnan casts daylight, and we watch as it was just goes like, poof, 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 and the tree system just starts alighting with this like glow, and it just starts leading us in a direction. And we just run, we just start running. So we go for 2 hours, and then another hour, and then half an hour more. The fog is now up to our chests, and we are like,
you have to carry Clack and Yana.
You have to carry Clack and Yana so that they're not stuck under the fog. And then we get to these pillars. It's almost like the edge of this grove, this forest, because there's roots above, but there's also like trees and stuff below, like almost like the roots have kind of gone umber and have started sprouting again. And we see this massive face carved of what looks like marble and obsidian. And it looks like the Raven Queen. It is the mask of the Raven Queen. There's no door. The eyes are hollow and open, and it's
to the uninitiated. The mask of the Raven Queen is like her symbol.
Yes.
Like it's this fucking spooky ass like white mask that's like
it's got a red kind of scar down the middle of it with black kind of eyes.
And this thing is just massive. It's like what, 2 stories tall? Like
yeah,
it's huge. And we're just staring at this face. And we're like, oh fuck, I guess we found the place.
And so we're sitting there, and we're like. And so that is the end of session 69. So nothing,
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So nothing that we anticipated in that session. I feel like we can probably, why don't we get into it?
No,
Sean?
No.
You want to stop here?
Because here's the thing. This is what we're looking at right now. This space. This is the entrance to the God Tomb.
The tomb of the Raven Queen.
The tomb of the Raven Queen. I feel like we got to give
That's a good place
in
to
all,
stop.
In reverence. It should get its own Chatwater episode.
That's true.
Because this is where like this becomes our first like real dungeon delve.
Yeah.
And like we're gonna be hitting puzzles. There's gonna be some clutch moves. We are gonna find that fucking Parisian catacomb, and like we're going to be diving into deep lore. So if y'all remember when we talked about like the various gods of Paris,
Sean, look at
this is where it all becomes relevant. Because guess what?
Yeah.
Every god gets a fucking puzzle room in this tomb. And why? We'll dig into that because there's lore reasons for that. It's not just a puzzle. Tim Carlson getting multiple levels of lore. So yeah, next session, we go into the face and explore the tomb of the Raven Queen.